Hello, everyone. This is Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and the Evolution Revolution. And we are reading Neale Donald Walsch's book, The New Revelations. We are on chapter 25 at the very beginning of it, page 285. And we are going to have Linda start reading here. Please and thank you.
Okay, this is Neale speaking. You're making this all so irresistible. I don't know what to say. Say the truth, then be it. Say but the word, and your soul shall be healed. I am an angel. I am one with God, and God is one with me. Good, very good. Can this be true? Really true? I am not separate from you. All of my life, I've been told. Your elitist, exclusivist religions have not served you or humankind, but created in both a huge misunderstanding. That is because the core message of those religions is a message of separation from God, when the reality is that you are eternally unified with me. You're saying that at its basis, all of life is unified. Yes. Yet humans have always had question in their minds about this. Science has been trying to resolve this question for centuries, has it not? This is not what the search for a unified field theory has been all about. That is exactly what it's been all about. And now we're hearing terms like superstring theory and other such descriptions from our physicists as they try to explain to us scientifically what you've just explained to us spiritually. Yes, science and spirituality are coming closer and closer together on your planet, and soon it will be discovered that the two were always one. It is the same discipline, approached from different angles. It is the study of life and what life really is, examined and explored from different perspectives. Very soon now, science will confirm a great many things that spirituality has been telling you all along. When it does, the human race will be faced with ethical and philosophical decisions, the likes of which it has never been faced with before. What does that mean? I don't understand. Spirituality has been saying to you that life is eternal, that you are immortal, and that death is only a horizon. Science is now about to show you that to you, and to show you ways that you may push back that horizon into the very distant future. You mean extend our lives? Yes, beyond anything you might have ever imagined. Spirituality has been telling you that you create your own reality, that you have all the secrets and the power of life within you. Science is now about to show you that, and to show you ways that you may use that power and those secrets. Spirituality has been telling you that you are God. Not only that you are a part of God, but that you are gods in human form. Have I not said ye are gods? Science is now about to show you that, and to show you ways that you may impact life with the power of the gods. When you begin to be able to do this, and this is coming now, not in a matter of decades, but years, and even months, you will be faced with many, many decisions. Are we to play God? You will be asking yourself. This will be the central question of the 21st century. To what extent are you to interfere in matters that you used to think were supposed to be left up to God? And to what extent is God calling upon you to use the tools you have been given by God with which to perform miracles. These are the kinds of ethical decisions that religions are hoping to prepare you to make in the future, just as they have been trying to help you in the past to make social, political, and economic decisions. Yet unless they expand their own belief systems, religions, well-meaning as they are, will be no more successful tomorrow than they were yesterday. Organized religion is going to have to vastly expand and deepen its understandings of life and God before it can tackle today's problems, much less tomorrow's. Will the problems of tomorrow be even worse? Not worse, more complex. You could hardly have any worse problems to face than the threat of your own self-extinction, which you face today. Yet the challenges of tomorrow will be far more complicated than the simple question of whether you want to live or wish to die. More complicated than the question of whether we want to live? Yes. In the future, everybody's not on mute. Thank you. More complicated than the question of whether we want to live? Yes. In the future, should you get past this decision, the question will not be whether you want to live, but how and how long. Okay, wait a minute. You've opened a whole new arena of discussion here. First of all, you categorize today's problems as a simple question of whether we want to live or die. Is that really how you see it? Certainly, because that's really how it is. That's all the human race is deciding now. As with most beginning cultures, your species is making a very early developmental decision. Does it wish itself to continue, or does it choose extinction? Does it wish to survive, or does it choose to self-destruct? With every choice you make in your life at early developmental stage, you are making that larger decision. I'm sure we don't see it that way. No, you do not. And that is what marks you as as a culture in the early stages of development. Like children, you do not see the long-term implications of your in-the-moment decisions. Like children, you are largely interested only in short-term outcomes. You want what you want, and you want it now. Yet as you move from childhood of your culture into adolescence, you will begin to identify long-term goals that cannot be met with short-term thinking. Instant gratification will have to be replaced by long-range satisfactions if you choose to prolong your existence and to experience it peacefully and joyfully. This is by no means a closed matter. This is by no means a decision already made. Had you already decided to do this, you would not be behaving in many of the ways that you are now behaving, individually and collectively. In a very real sense, you are making the decision every day, in every moment. Every moment is a choice point. It is in this moment that you decide whether you want to live long and prosper, as your popular television science fiction character Spock would say, or to die young. We're deciding this in every moment? Oh yes, for yourself and for your species. In some ways that are obvious, and in some ways that are subtle. Your decision to breathe is a decision to live. Your decision to eat is a decision to live. Oh, well, of course, at that level, we are deciding between life and death. But who decides not to breathe? Who decides not to eat? All sorts of people. People make these decisions all the time. You've never heard of a person who decided to stop eating or who asked for a respirator to be turned off? Oh, no fair. Those are people who are dying already and are being kept alive with extraordinary measures. They're simply asking for no more extraordinary measures. And they are dying now because of other decisions they have made throughout their lives. Collective decisions and individual decisions. Decisions to pollute their environment and then to live within the pollution. Decisions to pollute their soil and then to eat the foods grown in the poison. Decisions to inhale and ingest into the body things that should never be put there, have no use there, and do not belong there. All sorts of decisions, large and small, made all day, every day. You do not think of these decisions as life and death decisions because you are an awakening culture, not yet fully aware of the consequences of your own actions. And when you are aware, ignoring what you know because you cannot say no to short-term gratification. As you mature, both individually and as a species, you will give up short-term gratification in favor of long-term goals. And many of your day-to-day and moment-to-moment choices and behaviors will change. Then ultimately you will make the decision that you want to live long and prosper, and that you want the same for your entire species. That is when the more complex questions will arise. I've thought about it, and I think I know the kinds of questions you're talking about. Yes? Good. What kinds of questions do you think I'm referring to? Well, I read an article on March 8, 2002, in the Arizona Republic from the Associated Press, which said that, quote, for the first time, scientists say they have ethically sensitive technology of therapeutic cloning to repair an inherited disease in a lab animal. The article goes on to report, experts say this demonstrates the potential of the approach to correct many common ills that affect humans. That is exactly the kind of thing I am talking about. And that is only the beginning. I know. I also was just read about a new and very expensive item that's going to be appearing soon on the menus of the finest restaurants. Cloned cow steak. I beg your pardon? Cloned cow steak. USA Today reported in the spring of 2002 that in the quest for the perfect steak, scientists have created the first cloned cow from a 2-day-old side of beef. The feat means cattle producers could choose beef cells from a slaughtered cow after its meat had been graded, and then create a herd of grade A clones. The first such clone was born at the University of Georgia and is part of a research collaboration between the school's College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences and a private company. Yes, well, that is a good example of where your society is heading with its new technologies. And humans are going to have to make decisions very soon that you never could have imagined you were going to have to make. Stem cell research is going to open vistas that you once thought of as the stuff of science fiction movies, including the possibility of greatly extended life, of repairing bodily damage, and curing major diseases with a simple injection, and of preventing many major diseases from ever occurring through genetic manipulation before birth. Wow. This will raise questions like, is it appropriate to let a child be born with a genetic predisposition for, say, muscular dystrophy, if pre-birth genetic transplantation therapy can prevent it? Or what makes it okay to treat a child for MS after birth, but not before? Exactly. But isn't it for God to decide which child gets to live a normal life and which child gets to be crippled? We are not supposed to prevent it, are we? If you didn't want a child to be crippled, you wouldn't have made it happen. Is that what you believe? Some of us, things happen because you want them to happen. It is the will of God. I see. And who made it happen? That medical researchers found a way to prevent such tragedies through pre-birth gene therapy. The devil made them do it. This is science run amok. This is taking things too far. That's what many people will say. That's what many are saying right now. Yes, it is the current belief of many people on earth that God is the one who decides which humans suffer and which do not. It will come as a great shock to humanity to learn that you are the ones making this decision. You are making it every day, and you are pretending that you are not. You will shrink from playing God until the evidence that you were always meant to act as gods mounts so high that you can no longer ignore it. Like Hermann Kummel in Hamburg in the late 1800s, your researchers of today will have a terrible time convincing others that it is a good idea to use advanced medical techniques in the prevention of debilitating disease until it becomes painfully obvious. And I mean those words literally, until it becomes painfully obvious that not to do so would be inhumane. Mind you, if it were a matter of pure science, there would be no question about any of this. But you have not allowed it to be a matter of science alone. You have made it a matter of theology. The issue becomes clouded when you get into what you think that God wants, when you begin claiming that the area of genetics is God's domain and not the proper domain of medical science. Now it becomes a moral issue, a matter of right and wrong, not a matter of what works and what doesn't work. Even if it can be shown that it works to prevent the crippling diseases in children by genetic transplantation therapy before birth, that will make no difference. Humans will still insist that it is wrong if they contend that it is immoral. These are the kinds of complex issues you will face and difficult decisions you will have to make in the very near future and throughout the 21st century. Assuming that you answer yes to the first question, do we as a species wish to survive? Yet you cannot even effectively explore that question, much less answer it, so long as you see yourself as separate from everyone else. And that is the core message of your present belief systems. But I don't understand why that thought, even if it is inaccurate, has been such a destructive force in the human experience. Even if we do think that we are not all one, can't beings who think of themselves as individuals still find a way to get along? The problem is this. The chief instinct of your species is survival. Remember what I told you. The basic principles of life are functionality, adaptability, and sustainability. At this stage of your collective development, you are still not clear that your sustainability is not in question. You mean it isn't? No. It is not possible for you to not survive. This will be explained to you further when we explore the 9th new revelation very shortly. For now, I'm going to ask you to accept it. Okay, that which you are, and remember, you are not your body, will always survive. It cannot not survive because it is the essence of life itself. And life expresses the principle of sustainability in, as, and through you eternally. So it is not a question of whether you will survive, but in what form. Well, supposing we wish to survive in our present form, in our human form. Well, of course, that is the form in which you wish to survive, largely because you do not know any other forms. You have forgotten, you do not remember. Many of you are not even certain that you survived the death of your body at all in any other form. So you are understandably deeply attached to survival in the physical body, deeply attached. What's wrong with that? That's healthy, I would say. There's nothing wrong with it. You might even say that it works, so long as you know that this body you imagine yourself to be is much larger than it appears. That is, if you realize that all bodies are a part of a single body, in that case, you fight for survival. Your fight for survival will be a collective one and an expression of a basic life principle itself, the principle of sustainability. If you thought that all bodies are part of one single body, you would do nothing that would reduce the chances of survival for all of humanity and do everything that would increase those chances. This is exactly the opposite of what you are doing now. With your mistreatment of the environment and your ecology, with your misuse of politics and your economies, with your incomplete understanding of spiritual truth as expressed in so many of your religions, with the mistakes of your mental constructions and your social conventions, and with all the behaviors that emerge from all of this, you are doing a great many things that reduce the chances of survival for the collective called humanity. So many things, in fact, that those chances are growing slimmer and slimmer by the day. Humans are doing these things precisely because most humans do not think of themselves as a part of the collective. They think of themselves as separate beings living separate lives on a separate planet where other separate beings are living other separate lives. And while they know and fully understand at some level that separate beings may do better when they cooperate with each other than when they don't, they very quickly revert to survival of the fittest mentality whenever they or theirs feel threatened. It is this, quote, my survival first and yours if I agree with it and can manage it, close quote, mentality, not exhibited by every human being, but exhibited by most, that works against the collective good and in fact creates a world in which the collective good is repeatedly threatened and may soon be destroyed. Because you imagine yourself to be a separated body. You believe that the experiences you create for yourself are experienced only by you. You also believe that the things you think, do, and say with regard to others have no direct effect on you. It is this idea that allows human beings to commit unthinkable and merciless acts of violence. But not all human actions and not all human beings are violent. There is good and courage and charity and kindness and compassion that resides within people. This is profoundly true, and this frequently emerges through human behaviors. Acts of heroism and kindness and compassion and goodness abound in the annals of human history, and they are in evidence everywhere today. And so it's a question of which side of human nature will win out. No, 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 and 1,000 times no. It is not human nature to be violent. I hate to say it, but from what I observe, somehow it looks very normal to me. Normal is not natural. Saying that a thing is normal simply means that it is often and usually done. Saying a thing that is natural means that it is intrinsically a part of something. Violence is not an intrinsic part of human beings. Yet the illusion that it is effective in solving human problems has become so pervasive that it is assumed to be natural to the human condition. Yet human beings are not by nature violent. But what of those who say that it is the nature of life to be violent? They argue that life itself is violent. They point to violence in the animal kingdom and violence in nature and violence in the universe, with stars exploding and imploding and asteroids colliding and whole galaxies disappearing, to support their claim of course humans are violent by nature. Violence is the nature of things. There is a huge difference between outcomes of natural occurrences, such as the process of star systems that you describe, and the outcomes of conscious creation, such as a decision to violently respond to a human circumstance. There's also a difference between the instinctual response of some living species and the conscious response of others. Life expresses itself at many different levels of some consciousness or self-awareness. The higher the level of consciousness, the greater the degree of self-determination, the greater the ability to choose and decide, announce and declare, express and fulfill the grandest notion one has of who and what one is. Every act is an act of self-definition. Oh, I'm confused. I thought you said the idea of being better is what gets human beings into trouble. Now you're saying that some living beings operate at a higher level of consciousness than others. How does this square with your earlier statements that superiority is an illusion? A higher level of consciousness is not better than a lower level. It is merely higher. Being in the 6th grade is not better than being in 3rd. Is it simply being in 6th grade? By the actions they take, by their way of being, animals announce what grade they are in. So too do humans. Animals demonstrate not how life intrinsically is, but their level of consciousness about how life really is. And so by their actions do humans. Human beings once declared themselves to be God's greatest achievement, beings of the highest level of development, having dominion over the creatures that creep and the birds that soar and the fishes in the sea. Such was the level of their arrogance. Gosh, this is still a view still held and taught by many of the world's religions. Yes, yet it cannot continue to be seriously subscribed to by even a casual observer of human behavior. Then, if violence is not natural, why is it so normal? Why is anger such a constant aspect of human behavior? Just a minute. You have equated violence and anger there. You've made them seem as one. Anger and violence are not the same thing. It should not be confused. Anger is a natural emotion. It is very natural to be angry at times. It is also very okay. That is, it works if you wish to live a life that is harmonious. What? I don't understand. I've always experienced anger as discombobulating. That is because you have not known a peaceful and loving way to express it. Expressed with love, anger is the discharge of disharmony, not the creator of it. I've never heard that before. I've never thought of it that way. That is all anger was ever meant to be. It is built into the system. It is part of being human. It is a pressure valve releasing negative energy. It is not the release of negative energy, but the failure to release it that will get you into trouble. It is not the expression of anger, but how it is expressed that causes your concern. There are many ways in which anger may be released that do involve no violence whatsoever, neither physical nor verbal. Learning to release anger in these ways is a mark of maturity. How can I do that? Well, there are many ways in which you can do it, and many people who can assist you in learning about these ways. Some people attend anger management classes. Some people learn to meditate. Some simply begin making new choices about how they are going to express their anger based on new decisions about who they are. If one is serious about learning how to express anger with love, one can find helping resources quite easily. For now, understand that anger is not a negative emotion. It is a healer. Anger releases negative energy. It makes it a positive emotion because it helps you get rid of something you don't want and live a harmonious life. Anger and harmony go hand in hand. Anger that is fully expressed with wonder at its healing qualities is anger that is wonderfully expressed, and that can make rich any moment between human beings, for it is the stuff of authenticity and truth, and there is no greater healer than that, nor any shorter path to harmony. Anger that is not wonderfully expressed, but expressed through verbal or physical violence, does not heal, but inflicts injury. Injury cannot heal injury, no matter how hard it tries. And why do we continue to use violence as our chief means of attempting to resolve conflict? Because violence has been deeply injected into your modern culture. There are 100 ways in which humans have allowed this to occur. Each one of us humans vehemently deny. Some humans vehemently deny that images of violence, that movies and television shows of violence, that comic books and video games, and the constant barrage of depictions of violence in every conceivable form have any effect on human behavior. At the same time, they pay millions of dollars to present 60 seconds of images on a Super Bowl commercial precisely because they know how images affect human behavior. Based on your clear sociological evidence, it would seem impossible to conclude that the violent images constantly placed before humans have nothing to do with their conceiving of violence as an acceptable means of resolving human conflict. And I tell you this, what you conceive, you receive. The process of human creation is very simple. It is the process that you might call seeding. Seeding, is that a word? It is a part of an English word, and it perfectly describes the process by which human beings put creations into place. It is how you build your life you are living. First, an idea is conceived. That is, it is given birth within your culture. Second, the idea is perceived. That is, you form a point of view about it. Finally, the idea is received. That is, and experienced again, this time in physical form. It is changed from an inner thought to an outer physical reality. To understand this more clearly, let's look at how this process has worked in creating the experience of increasing violence on your planet. First, notice that the idea that violence can be effectively used as a solution to human problems was being given widespread birth in your culture. In earlier days and times, it would have been difficult for many people to even conceive of such a thing. Now, such ideas are being shared with even the very young in a variety of ways. With this message receiving widespread dissemination, the people of your species, and particularly the young, who have no memory of a time when violence was not shown as the way to solve problems, form a personal point of view about the idea. What has been conceived is now perceived, and the perception is that violence is effective and therefore acceptable. This idea then comes back to those who think it. It returns in physicality, manifested form. What is conceived and perceived is thus received. The results of this process is what you are receiving today. But human beings were violent long before technologies of mass media spread the idea of violence as a means of conflict resolution. Indeed, that is true. Your mass media and your technologies, your ability to now instantaneously and graphically share your most violent communications, has only raised the problem to planet-threatening proportions. But the problem has, as you point out, existed for centuries. It first emerged out of man's earliest misunderstandings about life and about God. Review again the earlier portion of this dialogue describing this. You will recall, in short, humans assumed that the forces of nature that seemed to, from time to time, work against them were the outcome of conscious decisions made by something outside of themselves that was stronger than they. This evolved into the thought that they were the choices of an angry deity. The natives therefore sought to not anger the gods. Indeed, they developed rituals to appease and mollify them. Later, these primitive ideas gave way to a larger understanding of nature, but superstition was not so easily disposed of. Belief systems had already been built up, and when hard physical evidence of how the world worked belied those beliefs, the beliefs were simply adjusted to accommodate the new knowledge. Ultimately, organized religions emerged, and many of these institutions, particularly those that promulgated doctrines of superiority and exclusivity, encouraged the perception of an angry God who wanted things one way, his way, and who had to be mollified and appeased. Thus, retribution and violence became a godly trait, spoken of specifically in many holy scriptures, as we have shown graphically and repeatedly in this dialogue. And whether the religions of those scriptures actually encourage violence or not, many of their followers have been willing to believe that they do. For in such beliefs lie their justification to do unjustifiable things and to call it justice. I don't understand this. As human beings developed and grew more and more sophisticated in their understanding of nature and life and how everything worked, surely they would have given up their idea that violence was natural and therefore okay. How could we continue to believe that? Because this belief is supported by other beliefs, underlying beliefs, which have never been seriously challenged. These are your most fundamental beliefs, inoculated in society just as surely as mass violence is inoculated in your culture today. Hang on, I need to cough. The creation of myth, virtually every human culture tells in one form or another the story of an angry deity who separated himself from humans in a tirade over humans' inability to do as he asked. To reinforce the message, scriptures of nearly every major religion contain passages vividly describing an irate God's further acts of anger and violence. The illusion of disunity and unworthiness, the idea that all of life is separate rather than intrinsically unified, and that humans are inherently evil, is the cause of dysfunctional and violent behaviors. Humans act violently because they believe they are alone, that ultimately they are isolated, and that they must do whatever it takes to persevere, to protect, to preserve, and defend themselves in a world filled with evil. And what is this self that they must defend? Why? It is the body, of course. This is what they think. And so survival of the body becomes human beings' prime motivator. And whenever they feel the safety, security, or survival of their bodies threatened, they attack others in defense of the selves they think they are, and call this self-defense. Because you have seen other bodies like yours do the thing that you call die, you think that you can too, can die. And so you do everything in your power to keep from doing that, because you believe that death is the end of you. Your observation is that your body can die, that is, cease its functionality, is correct. But your thought that you are your body is not. This is where your confusion lies. This is where your fears originate. And this is the source of all the horror that you have collectively created and jointly experienced in your life on earth. Yet now it is time for your confusion to end. Now it is time for you to stop creating hell on your earth. For either you will stop creating it, or you will create the ultimate horror, which will be the end of life on earth. So here is my invitation today. Do not end your life, end your confusion. End of chapter.
Thank you. That's a packed chapter, that's for sure. Does somebody want to start the conversation or discussion?
Well, my thoughts about this relate to the wiring that our body comes with, and the things that we know about that. So freeze, fight, flight, you know, one of the three things that we're wired to do, and it's tied to that thought of survival. But the body is wired to fight, to save its life, or to protect itself. And so it's really, this chapter really is about becoming conscious, truly conscious that you're not your body. To be able to overcome the natural physical urges that the vessel that we're inhabiting have. Because I could tell you right now, if someone were to come in here and scare me, my first impulse would be to punch them or to slap them or to, you know, in some way physically, my arm would go out without, I wouldn't even be conscious of it. My body would respond to that, right? And that's really the thing, is to be able to stay completely present and realize that the impulses of our body are really not us. They're separate from us. Over.
I agree with what you just said. your example of being scared. And you can ask anybody in my family. If you come up on me too quietly and you start talking, I jump. You know, instead of if they started talking when they're across the room, then I'd be prepared for them to be there. And I think that's, and you might have already said this, that's part of that fight or flight thing. You know, because the other thing to do is turn and run. So interesting point. Over.
I would say I love this chapter. I think it's so important because if you look at life and historically and whatever, there has been so much tried to survive by killing, all this. It's all the time. It's part of life in human life, and fear of dying. And this united field to be one is the solution. There is no other way to come to peace. And so it's very, very well explained in this chapter. I love it. It's very healing and yeah, good energy. We need that. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Anne.
This is Anne. Hi. What comes to mind is my dear friend Daryl, who has Parkinson's disease, and watching the demise of his body. And like he's still in there, but he can't talk and he can't communicate. Every now and then he can get a few words out, but he can't explain what his needs are or what's going on. And he's still there. And you can see, it's just amazing the difference of there's this outer life, which is our body, and there's this inner life, which is our spirit or who we really are. And when you get someone who is at effect of the neurons not working anymore and not firing, and you know, certain parts of the brain just don't work and do their job. I don't really know what I want to say about this, but it just, you know, without our body, it's hard to exist. And then people pass judgments. You know, I can see it's really hard to see the beauty and the tragedy in the same breath. You know, like people, like his family, and everybody doesn't want anything to do with him because they think it's so sad and everything. And yet, this last year, I've learned more about the deep love, and I felt more love for this person than I've ever experienced in my life. It's just a different kind of love. And the thing is, because when I look at him, I don't see his body. I don't see what everybody else sees. I see the person that was my friend for 18 years. I know who he is inside, and he's still there, you know? And it's just, I don't know what to say. It's a hard experience, and yet there is a beauty to it. He doesn't seem to be suffering, you know, as far as physical pain or anything. He just has this level of acceptance, but then sometimes he goes so far away, and I wonder where he goes when he goes. That's all I wanted to say. Over.
Thank you, Anne.
It's been really, really difficult to take legal guardianship. And I called hospital just to bring up to date. It finally got to be, I couldn't manage. He needs so much care at this point, and the places, they're just horrible. They just can't accommodate. So this week I got hospice involved, and he's going to have a social worker, and they're going to send in an extra nurse, and they're going to give him pet therapy, and they're going to give him music therapy. And I wish I could have done this sooner, because he's getting bad at this point. And I don't know. Thank you for just letting me share that, because this has been difficult for me.
You're welcome, and I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. So thanks for updating us.
But the real communication, though, is the seeing how there's this outer life and this inner life. In the Sufi walking and traditions, they're the same, that your inner creates your outer. What comes from you comes to you. So that whatever is inside of us, we're projecting out. And with that projection, the universe gives us back. But there is this inner life, and the more, if I go quiet and I go deep, or I go into my prayers, there's this whole different life inside of me, and it's timeless, and there is no age. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Shabana, do you want to go ahead and start the meditation, and we'll just finish a couple minutes early?
Yes. Lord God, we thank you that Anne has expressed so clearly exactly what we read about here. Daryl is experiencing Anne's love because of their shared communication over 18 years. And here now, each one of us on this call is eager to be as godlike, as loving, and as tuned in as Daryl and Anne are. There's no difference between any of us. We're all part of the same body. And the huge algae mess, which is appearing in Mexico, is threatening to swallow us up at a spiritual level. But here now, we have joined hearts in dissolving the spiritual mess, the confusion, which has resulted in this stinky algae. We give it to you, we cannot solve it, but our intention and our desire is to work together to love. Amen. Thank you.
You.
Thank you, Shavana.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
thank you so much. Wonderful.
Anybody have anything else they want to add before we end the call or the session?
I just want to say that I appreciate this so much. It's so wonderful to be part of it.
We're glad to have you here.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I am here.
Nanette, there was somebody that joined us, but they're not here now.
It was somebody named Diane, but the Galaxy person is still here.
Yeah, I don't know who that is either.
No.
Welcome to them both.
Yep. Okay. Well, I love you all and look forward to next week. And we'll keep marching on.
Please post this as soon as you can, Nanette, before Friday.
Will do. All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Love you all.